to Tom Girl, where we talk all things sports, entertainment, fashion, and adventure. Today, I'm so excited. We have team number 102, Pivot and Persist from this year's Rebelle Rally. Jolene Bibian and Adriana Stovall. Welcome back to the show, ladies.
Woo!
Thanks so much for having us, JJ. We made it.
This is so great. I like I told you guys, like, I don't want to hear anything about it. I just want to hear about it on the show because you both have been on the show separately as you like were forming the team and training and everything. So now I cannot wait to hear about this experience.
Yeah, we're stoked. I mean, I feel like, I don't know about Adriana, but this last week, people were like, so how was it? And I'm like, I don't know yet. Like, I still need to like pull it out of my brain, because it was like just super intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because the last couple of days of the rally, everyone was telling us that we were going to need some buffer time for like re-entry into the real world. And I'm definitely feeling it. I mean, we've been just in this mindset of training and preparing for it and anticipating it. And now that it's done, it's like I have a lot of free time all of a sudden, which is strange because I didn't have any of that beforehand. I know Jolene's in a little bit different of, she's jumping back into her business and everything. So just little differences in our experience, but it's been really um, life-changing, a huge perspective shift for me for sure. So I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit.
For sure. Tell everybody first, let's catch them up and tell them what the Rebelle Rally is.
I'll let Adriana do that part. 'Cause she's good at the snippets.
Okay. Jolene says I'm a good storyteller. I don't know if she's telling the truth or not. But
Okay.
so the Rebelle Rally is the longest off-road navigation competition in the United States. It is over 2,500 kilometers that traverses over the desert and the mountains in California and Nevada. And it is all for women. So there are no men competing. It's all female teams. This year was the largest Rebelle Rally. They had over 65 teams. And what makes it so special is that it's completely technology free. So we're not allowed to use cell phones, GPSs, anything like that. We are out there just using a map and a compass and our training to get us from point A to point B. And we have all these different checkpoints that we need to hit every single day, different levels. We have to do enduros on time, on route enduros. So it's a huge challenge. We're camping every single night. So it is a competition of endurance more than anything. So it was a really unique and challenging experience, to say the least.
And how did your team come together? Like, what made you decide, yes, we're going to do this?
I think it's interesting because I've been reflecting on this about how unique it is when you naturally come across someone in like the right time. So I had learned about the Rebelle Rally probably years ago, and it was actually kind of cool because I got to meet the girl that I saw on YouTube talking about it many years ago. So she actually competed with us this year, and so anyhow, she was talking about it on this off-road channel, and I was like, I want to do this. Like, this sounds incredible. So flash forward, I originally had another team member picked out. She was just an incredible person that her and I had done a lot of endurance events together. So I was like, oh, this is, what better person to go about it than my friend Sarah. It turned out it just wasn't the event for her. So last minute, she's like, look, I'd rather tell you now. I'm not going to be able to compete with you. And just at that time, I had met Adriana at a bachelorette party in Austin, Texas. And her and I were chatting up, and she was telling me about what she did for a living. And I'll let her tell this part because, like I said, she's like the best storyteller ever.
Thanks. So yeah, Jolene and I actually live in the same city, and we worked in the same city and worked in the same office building, have a lot of mutual friends, but had never crossed paths until we both got invited to a bachelorette party by a mutual friend of ours in Austin, Texas. And so we're Southern California girls, we're hanging out in Austin, we're just, chatting it up in the middle of a bar. And she's like, well, where are you from? What do you do? The typical questions that you ask a total stranger, right? So I'm like, well, I live in Camarillo. And she's like, wow, me too. I'm like, well, I work in Ventura. She's like, are you serious? Me too. That's kind of strange. And she's like, well, tell me about your job. And I told her I'm an environmental scientist and my job is very strange. Usually at the beginning of the day, I get a list of coordinates and a set of truck keys and a time that I have to hit all these sites and be back. And her mind was just blown. She was like, we're going to talk when we get back into town. I have an opportunity for you. You sound like this is exactly up your alley. And so we met up for dinner and drinks once we got back from the bachelorette party, and she explained exactly what the Rebelle Rally format was, which was a whole lot of checkpoints, you know, GPS coordinates, a set of car keys, you know, time constraints, and hitting all of these sites and then making it back on time. And I was like, you know what? Sign me up. This is going to be a huge undertaking, but I'm making an effort to be more of a yes girl and to saying yes to things that scare the hell out of me, because I think that's really healthy and there's no growth in your comfort zone. So that was basically how we met. It was super organic, and really exciting, and you couldn't convince me that it wasn't meant to be. I mean, and Jolene and I are like so similar in personality as well. Like our birthdays are close together, and just how we approach life and kind of that can-do attitude, especially for being kind of more ballsy tom girl females, you know. I think it was really meant to be. So I'm so excited that we crossed paths in such a cool way.
I love that. And then talk about what you did, because I know you did a lot of training and fundraising. So what did you do in the days, the months, weeks leading up to the rally?
Sure. You want to take this on, Joe?
Yeah, so, in retrospect, it's so interesting because once you actually do the rally, you understand that nothing can prepare you for what is actually to come, like, unless you were a past competitor. But I feel like the best we could do is we signed up for, so the rally puts on these curated events called Rebelle U, and they take past competitors and Emily Miller, who's the creator of the rally, and they put together information that it's not going to help you necessarily prepare to win or do any better than anybody else, but it gives you some fundamentals for how the rally is set up. So we did a couple of those. One was in Ocotillo, the first one that Adriana and I did together. It was a 4-day, really intensive, foundational, navigational information. They kind of went over just the ins and outs of navigational fundamentals. And then we went out for a 2-day off-road, kind of 101, if you will. So even if you are someone that off-roads on a weekly basis, monthly, even on a yearly basis, it really just takes you back to the basics. And I feel like doing an event like this, you could know everything you possibly can, and you could, be an avid off-roader, but there's some basics that some of us just kind of like, let go. So it was really cool for her and I to do some things like that. And then once we got that under our belt, we just did some one-on-one. We went out, we camped together just to kind of get that feel together of just her and I and how we work together, which is a lot different, right? When you're out there just in the middle of nowhere. We don't camp at usually, like her and I on our own, we don't really camp at like the usual family camp places. So I think just having that under our belts. And then we would go out and Adriana would actually create checkpoints. And so we would actually go out there and hunt them together. And so, yeah, that kind of gave us a good start. But yeah, Adriana, you could tell them about kind of your version of that.
Yeah. So like Jolene said, we being the organized people, maybe a little neurotic people that we are, we came up with like a schedule and like goals every single month, every single week leading up to the rally. So it was an incredible push for fundraising to be able to raise the proper funds to be able to sign up for the Rebelle. So that was a huge part of it. I would say that was probably 75% of our weekly and our daily duties. So aside from fundraising, we had weekly meetings where we would talk about anything that was on our to-do list. We would go and visit sponsors together. We would create documents that were checklists, et cetera. But then also we would have at least once a month, if not more often, our training weekends. And so we would go out and camp together. We would go out to remote places that were like OHV areas. So we could dry camp, disperse camp, which was what we were going to be needing to do during the rally. That's my favorite kind of camping anyway. Like Joe said, I don't really like to stay in campgrounds with other people. I like to be off the grid. So we would, just dry camp on OHV land, and we would practice like doing our gear shakedown, because every single night of the rally you're staying in a new location. I mean, there was a couple of nights where we're in base camps for 1 or 2 nights, but we're moving locations pretty often, and so we needed to make sure that our gear was fully functional, that it was comfortable, that we could fit it all in the Jeep. I would create, either enduros or a list of checkpoints, and then we would go out and find them. And it was a good opportunity for us to spend a lot of time together, to see how we work as teammates, spend time in the elements together to see how that would potentially stress us out and how we were going to react in the real world. And then also just honing in on our skills. So, I mean, Jolene got a lot of driving time. I had a lot of navigation practice as well. And then being able to just find those little moments of silliness and joy in between all of the really heavy hitting, like, working on our skills, it was really valuable. And I'm so glad that we did that, because we talked to a couple other teams, either before or during the rally, and a lot of them lived across the country from each other and had only met or practiced together like a handful of times. And I'm like, I can't imagine being in the car with somebody for that long under these circumstances without having that like one-on-one time. So I was really grateful that Joe and I live so close together.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of practice, get you prepared. All right, so
Yeah.
let's dive into the actual event. Day one, or getting there before. Walk me through this.
Oh my gosh, like where do we start? It's interesting because, the event is 8 days, but you're really there and immersed in the environment for about 2 weeks. Because leading up to it, we drove up to Mammoth, which is where the start was. And then there's all these events leading up to the actual start line, so we're going to rookie meetings, pre-tech, and there's all these nerves because you have no idea what's to come after each moment, and everyone's kind of new to it. And this year I think was the biggest pool of rookies that they've had. So I think there were 60 rookies, individuals, because some, you could be a rookie, but you could be with like a past competitor as your teammate. So yeah, so for the first couple of days we were in Mammoth, taking care of business, and when we could, we would do some practice, but just acclimating with other competitors, I think, was really valuable. One thing that I found really surprising with the event is how much the past competitors help rookies. Like, I mean, granted, they know you're not going to take their place for the most part, because they just have such an advantage of knowing the format better than anybody. But yeah, just having that camaraderie with people that have already done it was probably the coolest thing that I found personally, like going into it.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Like Jolene said, we had multiple days of being out in the elements away from home, prepping before we even got to the start line. So we commuted up to Mammoth on, I believe, Tuesday. We had an impromptu dinner with a bunch of people that were already in town from the rally. We had a rookie meeting and pre-tech inspection on Wednesday. And then Thursday was actual tech inspection and commute to base camp 1. Friday was day 0, aka the prologue, where they gave us an introduction, and they called it Rally School or Rebelle School, where they just taught us the format of how everything was going to go down over the next week plus. And we got to go out for a half day, and everything was unscored, but it was the same exact format, getting a list of checkpoints, having to plot everything, get all your stuff in the car, get on the start line by a certain time, and then go, go, go. So by the time we even hit day 1, we're already like four days deep.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people were probably feeling tired by the time the event even started. I know I was feeling like my head was spinning, but yeah, when we got to base camp 1 and before day 0, that's when they took our technology away. So I don't know if I mentioned that, or maybe I'm going to emphasize it a little bit more, but they actually confiscate our connections to the outside world. So smartwatches, cell phones, laptops, anything that you have that you could have outside communication, we lock it up in a box with tamper-proof tape, and nobody can mess with it. Otherwise, you're disqualified. So I think that was probably the other part that was just the mental game of the rally that makes it so unique, is that you're completely cut off from the outside world. So if you have a bad day, out on the course, you have an argument with your teammate, you're just freezing cold, you're over it, you want to go home, you can't just call and complain. You can't send a text message, you can't share photos. Like, that disconnection, it is so unique. Because for me, I felt wonderful disconnecting from the world, and I had more anxiety getting my phone back than I did during the entire rally, which was weird. But also, it forces you to be incredibly present and to just deal with problems head on and
Mhm.
find solutions rather than relying on Google or calling a friend. It was really empowering. That's the only word I can use for it.
Yeah, I would agree. And actually, like, going back to that point, I was talking to somebody else about it, and it's interesting how insanely challenging the rally is, because you're going, 8 consecutive days back to back to back, but you have one goal. I mean, relatively speaking, one goal as a team, where in your daily life you can have so many competing thoughts, goals, interests, people wanting this and that, and in one day you could be working on several different things at once. And so I feel like for me, that was so relieving, to just, all you're doing is you're in that moment and you're working on that particular instance. You're not, wondering about all these other things at once. So I think after the first day, most people, I mean, for me, my brain was like, okay, we're just here. That's it. Like, there's no need to be distracted by your phone or other people wanting things. So it's almost like a gift and a curse with regard to the rally with that.
So tell me about that day one. What did they have you do on day one, and how did you feel like before and after?
Oh my God. For me, day one, it was like an out of body experience, because I personally was just so, it's like you prepare and you do everything you possibly can, and then you're there and you're like, holy shit, there's just so much, and you want to do well, and you want to make your teammate proud of you, and you want to like do all these things all at once, and then it's like you're at that start line, and I literally wanted to vomit. I was just like, oh my God, this is happening. And then, it's go time, and everything just kind of falls away. You're like, all right, I'm doing it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's intense. It's like I feel like you're just running so fast, and all of a sudden you're just like, you're there and you're doing it. And I don't know, like, I feel like after that, I'm like, okay, we can definitely do this. Like, I feel like we were definitely more capable as a unit than all the doubts and all the thoughts that lead up to that moment.
What were some of the other days like then afterwards? What kind of the challenge? I know some of them are endurance days, and some of, like you said, were like out and backs or plotting. So describe some of the other days you went through.
Sure. So some of the other days that were memorable to me would have been the transit days between base camps. So because we're covering such an incredible distance over California and Nevada, some of the days where we had to transit to the next base camp, we would have a full day of hitting checkpoints, 20 plus, 25 plus checkpoints for the day that we have to hit before like 2 p.m. and then get on the road and make an additional like 4.5 hour commute, to a different part of the state or into a different state altogether, which was really challenging because usually when you are on a long road trip and you're driving for 4 or 5 hours with your friends or your family, you're able to just turn on the radio and take a little nap and put on your GPS on your cell phone, and it tells you where to turn and where to get off. There was none of that. So the enduro challenges, the transit enduros that we were doing were 4.5 hours long, and we're having to get off the freeway at a certain distance, and we're turning down some random dirt road, and then we're making sure that we're following the power lines, and then we're doing a technical part of the trail, and then we're stopping and getting out and taking a heading of some other road, and then getting back onto the freeway, and then getting back off. And then it was just a lot of following directions. So I was exhausted, and I'm sitting in the car and I'm like nodding off, and I'm like, make sure that you turn in 0.27 kilometers, and there's no mental break. I mean, you're you're basically hitting up like a 14-hour day without any form of a break. I mean, Jolene and I didn't even stop and eat lunch any of the days. We were just snacking the entire time, and we'd stop and we'd use the restroom, we'd check the tires real quick, we'd get some equipment out of the back, and then we're back in the seat and we're at it again. So we had really limited downtime, which made the days go by incredibly fast. But the thing that sticks with me the most about the rally, and I know this is a very long-winded answer, so please just tell me to be quiet whenever you're sick of hearing me talk.
You can talk all day. I love hearing this.
But the thing that really stuck with me is I do a lot of off-roading. I travel a lot throughout California. I do a lot of backpacking. I'm a snowboarder, like all these things. I'm out all the time. And I thought I knew so much about the Eastern Sierra and Nevada and the desert and Mojave and Johnson Valley and everywhere that we went. But I saw some trails and some OHV areas that I had never even heard of before. And it was just mind blowing because I consider myself like a very outdoorsy person. I'm like, I've been all over this place. I'm probably going to do some trails that I've done before. This is going to be a breeze. And it wasn't a breeze. It was challenging. I loved it, but I saw so many incredible new places that I am so excited that I got to keep the maps, because I definitely starred those and I'm going to go back and visit again. And I'm just so grateful that Emily and Jimmy Lewis, the course director, had put so much thought into what a beautiful course they put together for us. So I was just blown away. So much of an appreciation for California and Nevada, even more so than before.
I saw they actually they plotted, your guys' course. We were going each day you could watch. And I was just like thinking, I was amazed. Cause I'm like, how are they, like places that, we're just seeing the like line go, right? Telling you where to turn and things like that. But I'm just like how stressful was that though? Like, cause it went back and this and around here and around like places, not like you're on a highway, you're not taking the 10 East, like was the time that you got lost or you're like, holy shit, where are we? Or, any experiences like that?
I I feel like Adriana did a really good job at just making sure that we knew, generally speaking. I mean, there were some times when we're like, all right, let's like figure this out, because it maybe we couldn't see the skyline, or we couldn't see the mountains, or we couldn't see because we were, underneath an umbrella of trees. But I feel like even if we did kind of get turned around a little bit, she'd be like, all right, wait. And she would figure it out within like minutes. Yeah. And so we would always say, oh, we got temporarily lost. And they're like, okay, well, that's like literally being lost. We're like, no, 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 no.
It was for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like I had I feel like I have a pretty good sense of direction at all times, and I'm very familiar with the areas that we were in. So it was kind of a running joke in the car with us. Jolene would be driving and we'd be in the middle of, some OHV areas, like trees are covered or we're surrounded by a bunch of rocks. You can't really see where you are. And I'm like, Blake, which way's north? And I knew. And she was like, and she would like, use whatever tools were in her toolbox, right, to like figure it out. And so it was like it was a big game to us to be able to like see how quickly we could figure out where we were if we felt like we were turned around. But I would say like 95% of the time we were like, we know exactly where we're at. We know that we're within this range. Okay, well now we're, having to stop at some crossroads and take some headings and then figure out, okay, that mountain range is over there at north. This one's over here at southeast. Like, okay, perfect. This is where we're on the map. Like it was just a couple of minutes of like using our tools and we would figure it out. But for the most part, we knew where we were going and we knew where we had just come from and where we were supposed to be next. But honing in on like how closely we could get there or how quickly we could get there was another thing. So it's all part of it.
And Jolene, how about for you? Because you were the driver. So any new things you were able to navigate or areas that scared you or you're like, oh, that was really fun?
Yeah, so it was interesting because for the first like day or so, we were just like on dirt roads, and they were beautiful and everything was gorgeous. But I was like, I couldn't wait until we got some technical driving in. And I think it was day two. I don't even know. They like all kind of go into one, but we took a wrong turn and we actually got down into this like super rocky kind of little canyon. That was kind of technical to get out because you got to do like a little 3-point turn, and then she had to get out and spot me, and I was like, oh my god, that was amazing. And but we were not even in the right spot, but to me it was like so much fun. And then it was like day I think this was day two. We got to drive up the steepest, highest peak that the Rebelle Rally has ever done. And in the morning, you know, they want everyone to understand how serious it can be if you choose this route. And it's not something that you could drive. And for us, anytime they had like an X route, so just to kind of take a step back, there would be in some instances you would have to make a decision. Do you want to take the regular route or do you want to take the X route? And the X route would be either more challenging from a driving perspective or more challenging navigationally. And so if it was like more challenging driving, we're like, hell yeah, or even navigational. Like anytime there was an X route, we're like, yes, let's do it. And we would both kind of be like, okay. And we would get there kind of like anticipating, you know, what was going to be the challenge. And those were always the best. But yeah, to answer your question, I feel like I was pretty proud of the driving because, you know, 12 months, 18 months ago, I would probably get a little bit apprehensive about certain off-road conditions. But there wasn't a time this other than the dunes, which is a whole nother story, when I felt like I couldn't do it, you know, and having Adri there just kind of guiding us through, and I just felt really capable. The both, I mean, the three teammates, you know, Adri, Ruby, and I. So the driving was spectacular.
All right. Well, since you mentioned, tell me about the dunes. What happened there?
Oh man, the dunes are just the dunes. I mean, they're so unpredictable, and I've done some training in them, but once you get out past a certain point where you can't see an exit because, you know, you can make the wrong move and you're tumbling, you're rolling your vehicle and you're putting everybody in your vehicle at stake. So yeah, the dunes were really intimidating. Especially we got out there into some of the really tall ones where I just couldn't see an exit. And the sand was just so soft. Previously, the conditions had been a little bit more moist, so the sand was a little bit more firm. And man, we got out there and some of those dunes, I mean, the sand was super grippy. It was just pulling the tires in, and it makes it a little bit harder to maneuver such a large vehicle, you know, 2 tons of steel, and then it's a little wild experience. A little different than the side by sides, let's just say that.
So then overall, like what were some of your highs, the high moments you take away from this experience?
I'll let AG start on this one.
Okay. So I would say the incredible terrain that we were so lucky to be able to experience. It was so diverse. So the first couple of nights that we were in the Owens Valley at Brown's Camp, that's where the prologue and day one, and then part of day two was. It was incredibly cold. It was like 14 degrees that night. So we were all freezing our butts off. It made everything difficult, like just getting dressed in your tent. I mean, there was like ice on the inside of my tent that was falling onto me as I was getting dressed in the morning. Like my fingers weren't working. I couldn't figure out where the zipper was to even get out, like shivering, trying to hold my coffee cup, and my fingers weren't working when I was trying to plot and use my pencil. It was rough. But being able to see the sunrise every single day was a personal highlight for me. I am somebody who will sleep in as long as I possibly can. And so I'm not regularly up when the sun is up. So that was super special to me, just seeing a different part of the day than I'm used to. Um, the incredible terrain, like I said, maybe on day two, I believe, right before we were making a transit into Nevada, we saw wild horses out on the trail and they were running next to the car that was in front of us. And we had kicked up so much dust just from driving on these dirt roads, and the sun rays were, you know, shining through the dust clouds, and I could just see the horses' manes just going back and forth in the sunlight in front of us. And I got tears in my eyes, and I looked at Joe and I'm like, we're so lucky that we get to do this. And maybe like an hour before that, we were driving over these trails that were just completely covered with obsidian. It was like a volcanic, like eruption field. And that was one of the places that I started on the maps because I really want to take my family back there one day. And what else? I mean, going over those crazy summits when we got into Nevada on the steepest, highest elevation trails that the Rally had ever done. We some rock crawling in Johnson Valley, just the stars when we were camping, you know, self-camping out on the marathon days. We got to go to this incredible little ghost town in Nevada called Gold Point. I mean, the list just goes on and on. We got to see some really badass places. And also disconnecting from the entire world was super special for me. It was so luxurious because like Jolene said, like you have one goal and you're focusing on that and only that. There's no emails, there's no kids, there's no family members, there's no birthday parties and dishes and everything else under the sun. It's like you're there for that goal, and just really being able to like hone in on your skills and focus on one thing at a time was so luxurious in our crazy modern world, you know? And last thing, but this is definitely not least, I know Jolene and I have had many talks about this before, but we definitely feel like we're kind of a special breed of women where we're yes women, we're risk takers, we're people with special hobbies and just maybe a little bit more grit and kind of badassery than the normal female. And I personally search far and wide for these types of people, and you're lucky if you find one or two of them in your little corner of the world. And to be out there and be surrounded by like several hundred of these same species of people was so heartwarming. It was like overwhelming. And I just like, I can't even describe to you how welcomed and understood and like truly seen I felt around all of these amazing women. I mean, there was a lot of men too, but they're all like media team or course directors or they work for the rally, but they all have that same mindset and mentality, just this little extra something, and everybody had it, and it was amazing to be surrounded by your people.
Yeah, you're speaking my language on that. That's the whole reason behind this passion project of mine. Cause like it took me forever to live. I've been in California for, 23 years to find you two girls, it's like, it's really hard to find your tribe and find those women that are going to, that are like that. So it's so great that it's just amazing that you guys did this and found that more ladies like that out there.
Wait, so JJ, does that mean that you're gonna do the Rebelle Rally?
You definitely don't want me to be the navigator.
I think you would be really good. You know where you're at, you know you're north. Yeah.
It's awesome. All right, we'll see. I'll work on that one. So Jolene, tell me about your highs.
Yeah, I mean, I think Adri kind of hit the nail on the head with all of those topics. And I think the one thing that I'll add is you really there's like a mirror that gets shown to you on who you really are every single day. You can't hide from it. Like you wake up and it's you, in your tent by yourself, however you're feeling. At the end of the day, I mean, there was one day where I just wanted to go home. Like I was so done. I was tired. I didn't feel good. I felt defeated. Like that would have been the moment that I probably text my husband, and you can't, like, you're just stuck. And but I remember waking up the next day like, damn, I'm so glad that I'm here. Like, I woke up, I got out, I saw the sun on the horizon. This is when we were in Gold Point. And it's just that ability to kind of push through, and it's just yourself. Like there's so many moments where you're surrounded by people or your teammate, but you're literally just making it happen. And I feel like that for me was worth its weight in gold, for the entire we've only been back a week or almost 2 weeks, and I feel like I'm already calling on those moments that we accomplish on a daily basis in my daily life where I'm like, oh, I'm doing this because of that, or oh, I'm responding this way because of what we went through for those 8 days. And so I think that's going to be something that for the rest of our lives we have, and not everybody can say that.
Yeah, I love that. That was something I wanted to ask you, like what you guys are taking with you now from there on. Cause I know you had a post where saying like you're going into your 40th year and this was a great way to kind of kickstart a new attitude and push yourself even more. So yeah, what are other things like that are your big takeaways from everything you went through?
Yeah, it's just, I feel like, as a woman, you have so many doubts and so many like, that imposter syndrome, like everyone has it. But we're so much more capable. I'm someone who over prepares. I'm someone that is constantly trying to make sure that I know as much as I can because I don't want someone to feel like I don't know what I'm talking about or whatever. And I feel like showing up each day, and like we were able to accomplish some really hard things, whether they were you know, on the route or just personally, or I think just the fact of getting up every single day and being so intensely goal oriented for that many consecutive days without a break um is an accomplishment in itself, you know. So yeah, I think I'm still going to be probably calling on a lot of those moments and extracting some of it from my thoughts going forward. And I still think there's still some things that'll probably come up that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this, you know. And I'm sure Adrian and I will be connected forever on these quiet moments that other people may not understand. And also just the people like Adrian was saying that we connected with. I mean, talk about incredible people, even the staff. I mean, they were dealing with, you know, the same conditions that we were, whether it was 14 degrees or 104, and they were having to operate their own rally, you know, and still show up with a smile and still support us and still listen to all of our wackiness, you know. And so that was pretty incredible. Yeah.
What about for you, Adri?
I think Jolene is totally right as far as the rally being a huge mirror to you, because I felt like it was such a confidence boosting, event. It really made me realize like how capable and resilient I actually am, how many difficult things I can do. Maybe not easily, but I can complete them, and I live to tell the tale. But also it was a huge mirror in all of the ways that I can probably improve. There were many times where we're in the car and I'm trying to describe to her where we are, where we need to go, where we came from, trying to, get her to remember some trail that we were on, like, 10 kilometers back, and, just struggling. And I'm like, maybe my communication skills aren't as good as I think they are. Maybe I'm not as pleasant and as nice as I think I am. And just a lot of like opportunities to grow on a
Mhm.
daily basis. I mean, shit, on an hourly basis. We were just dealing with so many different situations, and they come at you quick. You know what I mean? It's not like you just hit one checkpoint and then you're like, okay, well, that was the goal for the day. Time to go back to base camp. We're going to go make a snack. No, you have 30 more that you have to hit. And then you have to do a 4-hour drive. And then you have to set up camp. And then you have to get dinner. And then you have to prepare everything for the next day. And then you have to get like 8 hours of sleep and then do it again the next morning, waking up at 4. It's like, it's so much. But putting yourself in extreme circumstances makes you realize how strong you actually are and how many things you can improve upon. Because I think under normal circumstances, you're not forced to communicate, have really good communication skills. You're not forced to have as much patience and grace and kindness towards the other person in the car because, how long are you actually in the car with somebody under normal circumstances? 4 or 5 hours during a road trip, but not that many days in a row. There were a lot of times where I just felt like I hadn't hit my goals or I wasn't able to perform because the navigation piece of it is really difficult. I mean, the driving part of it is really difficult too, but they're difficult in different ways. And so there were a lot of times where I was struggling, and Jolene was just so understanding. And she was like, take your time. What can I help with? And it was a huge mirror to me because I don't think I'm quite as nice and graceful and communicative and patient as she is. So I'm really trying to like have that in my brain, like what would Jolene do and how would she handle this? And I don't know, that was just what I was taking away from it. Like I think I could work on being more patient.
And how did you guys get yourself through those days? I know you said leaning on your partner, but what else when you, like you said, you wanted to go home or you're just like, we're so like, oh my, because that's a long time to like stay with it and do it. How did you push through?
I
Humor,
think it depends. Yeah.
a lot of humor.
A lot of humor. I mean, you just have to be humorous. I mean, even in our daily lives, I feel like when there's hard things, like Adriana and I, just in our small, you know, blip in time together as we've become friends over the past year plus, have experienced some other hard times together, but it's kind of weird because we find humor in the most unopportune moments. And I think that's what keeps us going is that little switch. You know, it could be just a coping mechanism that's probably not as healthy as we think it is, but I think that's really the foundation of it. And the other thing that was kind of cool is one of our friends had other people write us letters. And so there'd be moments when like that first day that I was telling you about, that was the first letter that I had opened, and I just like because you forget the people, right, that have gotten you to where you are, and just remembering how many people believe in you, even on your worst days, or your dog or whoever.
Yeah.
Like, you forget that you have this support system, like you're not alone even when you really are. That was really, yeah, that made a difference.
Definitely.
Any last thoughts on, all right, so words of advice you would give to people out there, women out there who are thinking, yeah, this sounds really cool. I'm going to try this. What would you tell them?
Oh, I don't know, AJ, do you have any top of mind thoughts?
Um, I would say across the board for anybody, but women especially, be more of a yes woman. Say yes to the things that scare the shit out of you. Because I feel like personally, if your dreams or your goals aren't scary, then they're not big enough. Like you need to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. You need to push yourself past your limits because otherwise, how would you figure out exactly how strong, resilient, capable, smart, goal oriented, all of the good things? Like, how will you ever figure out what you're really made of if you're just staying in your comfort zone all the time? I even more so now, I thought I was a yes person. I thought I was a brave person before, but post rally, I'm like, I'm just going to keep saying yes to scary things from now on because these are incredible experiences that I'm never going to forget. And I am a better person for it. I have such an amazing connection with Jolene, and then all of these amazing connections with these beautiful, incredible, smart, badass women now. And it's like if I had let fear be in the driver's seat when Jolene came to me with this idea, I would have robbed myself from this whole experience. So just say yes. Just do it. Be scared, but freaking do it anyway. That's my only piece of advice.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's those moments because you're gonna face things in your daily life that you want to retreat from, you want to get smaller, you just want to run the opposite way, but it's right beyond that where you get this blip of like, holy shit, I'm alive. Like, this is incredible, and that's really, I feel like there's so many moments during the rally where I felt that, where I was just like, oh my God, right beyond that moment where you kind of want to give up is where the excellence is. It gives me chills like thinking about it.
I love it.
Totally.
Such great words of wisdom. I love you guys so much. I thank you so much for sharing your story with all of us. And I just am so proud of you guys are badasses. I love that you did this and just so fun to hear you talk all about everything that you went through. All right. Anything last question. What's next for you guys? You guys have anything you're eyeing or something that you want to do that's big? Next challenge?
Ooh. Jolene and we were talking about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely want to do more maybe long distance adventure type endurance events. Personally, I think I don't know if I would do the rally like back to back, because there's just so many other opportunities out there, and we get one life. So and I'm not looking to like win it at all. Like, I feel like you would have to be in it like almost every single year, or constantly in it, and I just feel like there's so much more fruit to be picked. But I'm stoked. I would love to do something endurance wise with Adri again. I feel like her and I have some grit that not many people can do together. I feel like as a solo person, you could do anything, because nobody's watching you. You could do anything where no one's, looking at you every single day. But when you have to be accountable, it kind of levels you up, And so I would love to do something like that again with her.
Yeah. I haven't really put a lot of thought into it other than a lot of people asked me at the very end, during the award ceremony, like, would you do the Rebelle again? And it's 100% hell yes, I would. I don't know if Jolene wants to compete again. Maybe I'll compete with somebody else. Maybe I'll take a year off and think about it, and then we'll hop back in a year afterwards. But I think her and I work together really well as a team, and I've learned so much from her, and I think vice versa through this experience, training and preparing for it, and then the actual event itself too, was a huge learning opportunity. And we talked about going on a long backpacking trip together, maybe traveling to a different country, maybe trying to go down to Baja to do the Baja 1000 route during a different time. There was a couple other rebels that said that they wanted to do a group trip down there. So I think that would be really fun. But I think we're just going to keep these experiences in our back pocket and just see what's next in store. I'm a big believer that like if you just start saying yes to stuff and put yourself in situations where you meet the people that you're supposed to meet, like incredible things will happen. So yeah, just forever going to be a yes girl from now on.
Love it. Congrats, ladies. All right. Let everybody know where they can go follow you or how they can go see all of your, pictures and posts and keep a track of you guys on your next adventures too.
Go ahead, Adriana.
I'm on Instagram as Adriana Dorothy, and then I am on Facebook, Adriana Stovall. So please follow and connect. We'd love to talk to you guys. Anybody who's interested in doing the Rebelle or hearing about our experiences, or just anybody who's the same kind of type of gal as us, come find us.
Yeah, my Instagram is probably the best place. It's Jolene_Bibian. Pretty unique there.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again both so much for coming. I love you ladies. I so appreciate you taking the time to do this. And again, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. And I can't wait to hear about your experience when you do the Rebelle, because I know you're going to do it.
Cheers. Awesome.
Thanks, JJ.
Thanks everybody for watching and listening. You can follow along with all things TOMGIRL on our YouTube, Instagram, Facebook pages, and the website. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. We'll see you guys next time. So get out there and find your adventure like these ladies did. See you next time. TOMGIRL.